Say what you will about butts. I like butts. Butts are interesting. They say a lot about a person. They'll tell you what their health is and a bunch of other stuff. But we have a problem, I guess, in Overwatch, specifically because of a pose that has now been removed or will be removed in the next patch going forward. Jeff Kaplan, lead game developer or lead creator guy on Overwatch, just basically said that, this is not going to continue. Agreeing with a poster on the forum that basically the pose in question was a presentational manner and some other issues, and it wasn't in her spunky nature and all this other crap. Anyways, there's a bunch of arguing that we could have, I guess, as a community, and certainly there's been plenty of it over the last day. In fact, I was actually going to make this video previous to this, but I held off, let the night end, and decided to, take a little bit of time just to think about it a little bit, and instead of, talking about it in a video in a kind of way that wouldn't be prepared. So regardless of what you think about this issue, there's a lot of stuff that could have been avoided. Say what you will about Jeff Kaplan. I know that he's the creative director on the game. I know he's got other issues as far as other things that he's got to think about beyond just what the average person sees. So a lot of this stuff is, him trying to put out fires, and there's certainly a PR element to all this stuff. And I certainly understand that, and I understand the PR end of it as well. As far as players not feeling like everything is kind of like being censored as of late. We've seen that with JRPGs and a bunch of other stuff. Kind of like across the board, there have been a ton of instances where you could definitely argue censorship and other things are happening when it comes to games. But regardless of those points of view, and I've certainly made quite a few on Twitter about this issue, I personally just think this is a massive failure on the part of the PR end of things at Blizzard. Jeff Kaplan, is completely within his rights of, wanting to respond to something, especially when it comes to a single poster talking about this issue, and then a few others that kind of agree with the original poster. But regardless of that, I mean, it's a very small thing on the forum, or at least it didn't really have much legs initially, and then all of a sudden Jeff Kaplan kind of talked about this and basically put flame on the fire, and just made it completely burn up. And obviously there's been Reddit posts about this, and other people like Kotaku in Action subreddit, which have, taken this obviously and use this as another example of, there's been, this massive censorship wing and SJWs and all that stuff. But regardless of all that stuff, I just feel like this is just a complete failure in just Jeff Kaplan's point of view, at least when it comes to Jeff Kaplan, that he just should have talked to a PR person before posting this. You're going to say all you want about your position, like I mentioned before, but if he just would have not said anything, just not said a single thing, and instead just, said, in a future update, patch comes out and all of a sudden it's removed and it's replaced with something else, and, maybe made a post about it that the, animation or the pose or the emote was placeholder and that they always intended to change it. If that was their standard point of view, and if they hadn't really addressed it in the community, then frankly, nobody would have cared. Nobody would have batted an eye, because a lot of this stuff we already know is placeholder because of it being a beta. A lot of changes like this stuff actually happen. And in fact, if you go, and I'm probably showing this on the screen right now in the video, if I've taken the time to edit this video, then you're seeing that all these poses are pretty much across the board on every single character. They look very placeholder regardless, like you got their shoulder back face, all that stuff, and then looking back, it's they're all pretty much exactly the same. They really don't denote any character for pretty much anybody, really, except to just look, quote unquote badass. And that's pretty much all it was, to me at least. I mean, it just seemed like the characters, the poses were just supposed to denote that, and then they had a couple characters there so that they could have a variety of them, so that all the characters weren't having a single emote where their backs were facing the camera in the in the post game thing. You know, they wanted to differentiate them a little bit, so a lot of the other characters don't have this pose. So they basically varied them so that, you know, you wouldn't just get the same pose over and over in a game potentially with that occurring. And it's funny, this thing just didn't have to be an issue. It was created an issue by Jeff Kaplan by not discussing it with the PR wing, by not, you know, talking to other people inside of his group. And in fact, he states in his follow-up post that, you know, he's the creative director and, you know, he's got final say on everything, and that's great. Well, when you say that, you basically just allow everybody on the other side to basically have a point of view, or at least to be able to point at that specific line and just say, you know, look, Jeff Kaplan's an asshole. He's a dictator on a game, and, you know, you didn't really care. You could have just made it, you know, willy-nilly, and, you know, you give him basically all the fuel and all the fire to just run with it. It's just, it's a really horrible way of dealing with this. You knew after you made that first post that it was going to be a problem, and then it became a problem, and I cannot believe that Blizzard, and especially Jeff Kaplan, of all people, especially with Blizzard's track record over the past, you know, couple decades at this point, that they wouldn't have foreseen this occurring. It's just, it is mind-boggling, a big PR misstep. All you needed to do was just talk to somebody who maybe knew what the fervor was in the community to know that this would have been a problem, especially if you phrase it like the way that Jeff Kaplan did. So please, Jeff Kaplan in the future, and Blizzard in total, and I have friends that actually work at Blizzard, so trying my best to not sound like a complete dick to those people. But seriously, next time that you decide that you want to make a statement, especially about something that's as touchy as this problem, quote unquote, please just talk to your PR rep. Please just basically think about how big of a problem this is going to become before you actually do it the next time. Please. On a side note, and it's kind of like a sidebar to this entire discussion, for those that don't know me, I've spent a lot of my time over the past 2 decades at this point, or a decade and a half. I have spent my time, you know, watching game coverage, seeing how people react. I've been a part of different communities, created my own communities, created a business as to, you know, reporting on media and being in that sphere, especially when it comes to game development companies in particular. And I've seen this problem come up a lot. I frankly don't think that a lot of game developers and publishers in general know how to properly handle these situations. They handle them terribly. And I'm not trying to talk myself up. I'm not trying to say that I know all, and you know everybody else's opinion is wrong, and you know they're not seeing. You know, I understand that there's things in the background that I may not see, but just want to say that it's something that comes up time and time again. Game developers really need either a portion of your fan base just on the roster, just basically so that you can field questions to before you post stuff like this, just so that you can kind of get a gauge, like a little small focus group, just so that you can kind of get an idea about how this stuff is going to go over. Because I've seen a lot of this stuff in the past that, especially with other games and other developers, other publishers, that could have had a lot of goodwill saved by just having maybe a couple people on staff that aren't, you know, not technically working at the game development studio, or maybe it's just somebody that you can call on, or multiple people in the community, maybe a small group that, you know, is of a disparate background, a diverse background that you can actually talk to kind of get a feel about how the stuff is going to go over before you touch stuff like this. This is something that has happened many times in the past, and probably will continue to, unfortunately, because a lot of power trippy people, and especially people with very big egos that think they, you know, frankly, are higher than thou and, you know better because of their experience level, often don't see how much the world has changed in the time that they've started, you know, working on a project, or the time that they've that they put into a company and just feel like they know better than everybody else. And anyways, a lot of this stuff could be saved by just considering a different point of view on your staff. So if you are a game developer or are a publisher, I would recommend obviously looking to your fans. You know, maybe talking to them first before you go and making a huge decision that could potentially tear your community apart.